I kind of get into this, that this is truly an honor, and I'm touched to be able to be back here and be speaking to you. Like they mentioned, I am Rickey Vick II, and excuse me for a second, my notes. I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma. I say I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma. I'm really from a whole lot of places. My dad was in the military. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. I spent time in Edmond, Oklahoma from 7th grade through my high school graduation until I got to Heston. My parents are Rick Sr. and Maggie. Rick started the legacy. My son's keeping it, and hopefully he brings it on to number 4. I'm going to try to push that once he starts getting a little bit older. I graduated from Edmond Santa Fe High School in Edmond, Oklahoma in 2008. Subsequently came to Heston and graduated in 2010 and finished at Fresno Pacific University in Fresno, California in 2013. And I'm currently working on my master's in business administration at University of Central Oklahoma back in Edmond, where I went to high school currently. Career-wise, like they mentioned previous, I am the lead of insurance sales at Kenneth James State Farm Agency in Oklahoma City. And I'm actually a member of the Agency Aspirant Program, which is where they pick 5 people out of each sales territory to where they give them a specific time frame where they're training them for agency. I'm 12 months out from being selected from the agency pool if I decide that that's what I want to do. And that's been a blessing. But then also, while I was in college, sitting at my table on the computer, I saw websites all the time, and I would always go to them, and I'd always want to leave comments about whatever I wanted to comment about. And sometimes, you know, you guys will see I'm a little bit long-winded, so whenever I'm typing things out, they would kind of drag on. And I kind of told myself, well, what is something that could make this process a bit more efficient? What is something that could make this process a bit more user-friendly and easier for people to use? So I came up with a software that would allow people to post comments on things using mobile video rather than typing them out. That's kind of the base premise. I won't get too pluggy into what we're doing, but that's what I've grown into, and we're actually planning to launch that in January of 2015. It's been a fun and exciting process to be a part of. A little frustrating at times, but we've made it through. Honestly, at this point in my life, I feel like I've made it halfway through the proverbial mountain that I think is going to be, what my lifestyle will be. And honestly, I feel like Heston was really my first step on really trying to figure out how I was going to traverse that mountain and really grow into the man that I really would want to be and the success that I would want to have. Heston played a pivotal role in helping enforce some tools that I try to carry on in my life. Before I came to Heston, I wasn't the most patient human being, and I wasn't the most humble, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But being here allowed me to be around people that engaged me and that accepted me on a relationship level that helped change me into a way that I think is positive and lasting. One thing that I gained out of my Heston experience was a real ambition to be successful in whatever that I decided to do. I didn't know what it was. I don't necessarily still know what it is. But I did find out that I want to live my life to the utmost. If I were to pass away tomorrow, I would be content with where I am because I live every day to get the most out of it. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And that's one of the quotes that I like to live my life by. Before I get into kind of telling you guys, about my message, I want to give you my story. I always feel like people are able to better understand you when they understand where you come from. So I want to touch on that a little bit. Like I said, my dad was military. He was in the Navy from the time he graduated high school all the way up until 1996. And because my dad was in the military, we were constantly used to moving. Moving was something that I'm kind of conditioned for. And then on that same token, we lived in my early years in a neighborhood in Durham, North Carolina that wasn't the greatest. There was a ton of gang violence. There was, literally a crack house on the corner that the house is still there, but no one lives in it. All types of things like that. And we were living underneath that, and my parents didn't want for us to. During that same time, in 1996, a little bit before we were to live, my family went through the first real tragedy of my lifetime. On December 1st, my mom only had one brother. He was 9 years younger than what she was. And we get a call early morning, December 1st of 1996, and my mom's crying. And I never really had seen my mom cry the way that she was crying. I went into her bed, and she had her hands in her face, and I said, "Mom, what's wrong?" And she said, "Your uncle's been killed." And I said, "What?" and he was asleep in a house, and some people broke in, and they wanted to steal stuff, and they didn't want to leave any evidence, and so my uncle was murdered when he was 18 years old. That was really kind of the first step for me in not really being able to step outside of my comfort zone, because my uncle was my comfort zone. He was my mom's only brother. Back when I was younger, I know you can't tell now, but I had a big afro. Yeah, I know, man. My uncle, he had a huge afro, and it was awesome, like 80s style. He kept a pig in his head. And after he passed away, I wanted to find some way to give a tribute to him. So I grew my hair out. From second grade through my 8th grade, me and my wife were actually talking about this just a minute ago. Through my 8th grade year of high school, I grew my hair out. I didn't get a haircut down to normal length for almost 10 years as a recognition to him. And then when I got older, I actually have a tattoo on my arm that commemorates him, because I want to make sure that no matter what happens to me, I always remember that he played a significant part of my life in what I wanted to grow into. After we left we had to kind of get out of that situation. It wasn't really the best thing. My parents moved me and my family to, of all places, Langston, Oklahoma. Langston, if you know anything about Langston, they have a historically black college in Langston called Langston University, but there's no schools in Langston University besides the college. So I went to a school called Coyle Elementary. The thing that was big and mainly different between Coyle and Langston and Durham, where I grew up, in Durham, I was in a culture that was predominantly black and Hispanic. The only Caucasians that I had in my class were my first grade teacher and my third grade teacher. And so it was, when I got to Coyle is kind of the opposite of Langston. Langston is where the university is, so there's a lot of blacks. And then Coyle is kind of a small town, and it's predominantly white. And so I was coming into a situation where I didn't know exactly which group I was going to fit into, because I had to be in class and I had to interact with these people on a daily basis. But then at the same time, I was used to, acting a certain way. And so I get to Coyle, things are a little bit different. I don't have too many friends outside of, my basketball team, because it was hard for me to get out of that comfort zone. Fast forward a few years, and me and my family, we moved to Edmond, Oklahoma. And Edmond, where I grew up, it's an interesting place. It's Oklahoma City's biggest suburb. I went to a middle school that was kind of like Coyle, where it had a mix of blacks and a mix of whites, but I was almost too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And so that was a constant negotiation that I really had to try to figure out. As I got older, there was one constant in my life that never changed, and it was always basketball. Anytime that I was ever going through something or I had troubles in my life, I could always just walk outside with my ball, and I would literally dribble for hours, or I would go and shoot for hours. And it was just my escape. I didn't really have any skills yet because I didn't know how to practice. I just knew I loved watching it on TV, and I wanted to go do that. And basketball was the one thing that was able to kind of get me out of my comfort zone, but I still stayed very close-knit. Me and my wife went to 7th grade together, so y'all know I still stay in my comfort zone a little bit. And so that experience in Edmond, it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be able to really learn how to deal with people from all walks of life, people from different cultures, and it really made me start to want to step out of my comfort zone and try to find ways that I could communicate to people things about me, things about my story, things about my family, things that I thought, would be beneficial to them in one way or another. We fast forward to my senior year of high school, and the topic of my speech is called the evolution of indecision, and this is really when that started to come about. My senior year of high school, we had a very, very talented team. We were ranked in the top 5 of the state of Oklahoma the entire year. We had a 20-win season. We went to the state tournament, and we lost in the state semifinals, and it was awesome. But one thing that I didn't know is if I was going to go to college and continue my basketball career, if I was just going to go to college. And that was the hardest decision, at that time that I'd ever really had to make. And I decided that I wasn't going to go to college and play basketball. I decided I had always wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. My entire life, I always did. And so I get to my senior year of high school, and I am not the most proactive person in the world, so I took the ACT just one time. And I took it in December of my senior year of high school. I passed it fine. Scores were good to get me into the schools that I wanted to go into. and I got accepted to Oklahoma State University, the only school I applied to, but I got accepted to Oklahoma State University. And everything was fine, and so my plan was, hey, let's go to Oklahoma State, let's study medicine, let's find a way to affect change in a positive way from doing that. But about, the state tournament was in March, and about February, I started to really second guess myself. I started to say basketball is what you love. Basketball is what has gotten you out of all the trials that you've been through. Basketball is the one constant that you've always been able to fall back on. Why leave it if you have the opportunity to still play? And this is the time where I started talking to my friend Carlton Dean, who's also Heston alumni, class of 2009. Tell him I told you that. And he started telling me about Heston and Heston College and his experience that he was having out here. And Heston was being coached by Coach Tim Schwartzendruber. And Coach Schwartzendruber called me, said, we're interested in you. We'd like to have you down for a visit. You should come. And I was like, I'm probably going to OSU to study medicine. I don't think so. And so eventually I called him back, and I was like, well, Coach, I'll entertain it. I think that I should come just to find out what this experience is like. Now, this is for the great Lamont Russell. I told him I would tell this story. In 2008, Heston was in the midst of the best season that they've had probably in the last 20 to 30 years. They were ranked in the nation for NJCAA, and so they were about to play a team called Frank Phillips College from Texas. And Frank Phillips was a pretty good program. So I said, that's the game that I want to come watch. I want to come see the Frank Phillips game and see what this Heston is all about. And so I come to the game. I'm super excited. Needless to say, they lost by 20. And so I was back to being undecided about what I wanted to do. And so we get down towards the end of the year, and we lose in the state semifinals, and I am just distraught. We lost to our rival school, who we had played 4 times that year, and no game was more than a 4-point differential either way. And so I had to make a decision. At that time, Coach Schwartzendruber decided that he was going to move to McPherson College, and Coach Dustin Gallion took over as head coach, and he called me also. And he said, well, we want to have you down for our recruit weekend. And I told him how I didn't really know if I was still going to play basketball, but I would come down. If you know Dustin, he is the epitome of energy. There's no better way to describe him. And we vibed with each other from the very beginning. And I got down, recruit weekend went well. He said, we would like to have you down here for the basketball team. I came home, I talked to my parents about it. I told them, it wouldn't be a traditional situation. They don't offer full scholarships, but I will have a chance to continue to pursue my dream. And that's the beginning of my Heston story. And to preface, my decision had finally been made about what I was going to do with college, and I was still able to play college basketball. My decision still wasn't set in stone. I knew I was going to play college basketball, but I didn't know if I was really happy with that decision or if I was content with doing that, because I always had wanted to be a doctor. So I came to Heston. Basketball was going great. I was excelling on the court. I started studying pre-med, and I had Dr. Hugo Boschman in class, and I took some of his biology classes. Now, if any of you have had a science class with Hugo, it is not the easiest thing in the world. And so I'm in class, and I'm like, is this medicine really what I want to do? Is it really my calling? I don't know. So I went through the rest of the semester, and at the same time, my first year, I had my first oral communication class. It's not part of our curriculum in Edmond, so I hadn't taken any speech classes. And so I had my first oral comm class with Kendra Berkey, and I loved it. I was able to get in front of the class, and I just received a certain energy from everyone that was responding to what I was speaking, being able to speak freely and convey my thoughts to people. It really brought a side of me that I had never really realized. And that was kind of the first time of me being able to step outside of my comfort zone and do things that I didn't really necessarily know that I was interested in. I stayed at Heston, and I graduated in 2010. I had a decently successful basketball career, and I was able to receive a few full scholarship offers at a variety of different universities across the country. I decided ultimately to go to Fresno Pacific University because I wanted to go to California. And they had a great academic program, and it's also, it's a traditionally Mennonite school too, so it was a little bit easier transition for me than some of the other schools because I had just been at a Mennonite institution, though I wasn't Mennonite. I get to Fresno Pacific, and my major isn't declared. and they had a science program that I could get into that's quite prestigious. But I decided, let me explore my options. And I would thought back, and when I reflected on my time at Heston, I realized that the time that I enjoyed the most was when I was in my oral communication and my public speaking classes. So needless to say, my time in Kendra Berkey's class, being able to speak, really helped that indecision evolve. It really helped me grow to decide of who I really wanted to be. I was able to take classes in oral communication and communication theory and various types of communication that will really help me bridge the gap between the person that I am and other people, and really conveying to them the person that I wanted to be. During my time at Heston, she was just one of my many mentors. Probably my favorite memory of being at Heston is my one-on-one time with Dwight Roth. Me and Dwight were the best of friends whenever I was at Heston. I would just literally show up to class 20 minutes early. We wouldn't really be talking about anything, but we would just be talking. We'd sit in the lark's nest, and that was awesome for me. And it was really the first chance that I had to step out of myself and to try things that I wasn't necessarily accustomed to, and to really start trying to focus on living my life the way that I want to, so I was able to get the most out of it. I graduated from Fresno Pacific, and I moved home with my fiance at the time. And we're there, and I'm kind of undecided of what I want to do. I knew that I wanted to do something business related because I turned down a chance to play professional basketball so I could be with my family, because business would be one thing that I could compete in every day. No matter what I did, if I wanted to, I could try to be the best business person that I could be, and of course it would benefit me on a financial side. So I did a lot of job interviews, and I interviewed with insurance companies and pharmaceutical sales places and corporate desk jobs, all this stuff. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a job in insurance. The one greatest thing that I was able to gain from that job is it allows me to speak to people from every walk of life, because everyone has to have insurance, even if you don't want to. And so I spent time, and I really started thinking, like, Rickey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And a funny story, the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's in a philosophy class. She's in pharmacy school, but she's in a philosophy class. And they were talking about an ancient Greek civilization. I forget the name of it. But she said the base premise of them was to be excellent in everything that you do. That's the reason I brought the quote from Aristotle, because that is something that I really try to focus on every day. No, I'm not perfect. No, everything does not go well for me. But every day that I wake up, I try to get the most that I can out of every minute and every second, so that if tomorrow my day isn't promised to me, I ensure myself that I got that I did it, that I am happy and I am content with the person that I want to be and the person that I'm trying to be. So as I wrap this up, I want to give a personal challenge to everybody. And this may not be something that you've ever thought about or anything that's ever occurred to you personally. But I want everyone to, if you can, at one point in every single day, takes less than 10 seconds. Sit down, close your eyes, and say, I will get the most out of today. That doesn't mean that you're going to have a perfect day. It doesn't mean that you're going to not have down days, because we all have down days. We all have things that we have to deal with. But that doesn't mean that that has to keep you down. If you focus on getting the absolute most that you can out of every single day, I really think that it can be advantageous to you really becoming the person that you truly want to be. And that is my goal. The last thing that I want to do, I'd like to end you guys in prayer, if you don't mind. So if everybody would please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for this amazing and blissful honor. I'm so happy to be back here in front of fellow Heston alumni, a college that helped me grow into the man that I want to be and continue to be, a place that taught me values that I continue to carry on throughout my lifestyle, and values that I wish that everyone else is able to absorb from this amazing institution. I bless that everyone is able to have safe travels home and have an amazing weekend. God, we thank you for your powerful glory, your mercy that you extend to all of us, and the blessings that you give to our lives. I ask you that you put a charge on everyone's soul, that they close their eyes and they tell themselves that they will get the absolute most out of every single day. That if tomorrow happens to be their last day, whenever they come to see you, you shake hands with them and you say thank you for maximizing what I truly meant for you to be. Lord, I thank you for your many blessings. I thank you for this opportunity, and I wish the best to everyone here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.